What's going on? It's JDaz09, aka Ayala One, back again with another Warzone Mobile benchmark test. That's what you're seeing at the top. Again, what we do during these tests is I'm really just trying to find the best settings for running the game on my Sony Xperia. Now, we're gonna run max settings with just the only adjusted setting is the shadows drop down to low. I'm noticing that with this new update, we're getting some kind of shadow glitch, predominantly on the map Rust, which we're going to see a little bit of that later on in the video. But hopefully they'll address that because I don't remember seeing that problem before. Um, these matches are pretty much just domination matches. I like how they usually last a little bit longer than some of the other game modes, so I can actually get some kill streaks and some good footage. And also, what I'm really looking at when I'm going and changing the settings, I've actually gone and paid attention to the type of anti-aliasing that takes place with the higher settings, and then also keeping an eye on the upscale quality, which I'm noticing is a pretty big difference. Um, when you don't have it on versus when you do have it on. Now, even if you were to go with, say for instance, you have your graphic settings either medium or high, that I feel like that doesn't change the graphics too much, except for like further in the distance. I think that has something to do with like draw distance, and that may actually pertain more to the battle royale mode. But I'm running that on high, and then for the resolution, if you have it on low or medium and then you use the upscaler on the high setting, it does actually bring it pretty close to as if it was on the highest resolution setting. But for this particular phone, this Xperia, it actually has a 1600p screen, and so the upscaler will actually bring it to a resolution that fills the screen, and that's something that looks really good while I'm playing the game. Now, unfortunately, when I'm recording the footage, it doesn't record it in that resolution. It records it in 1080p, so it doesn't actually get the full quality that I'm playing the game in. And of course, while we're recording in 1080p 60 frames per second, that does use some of my the smartphone's chip power, and so that does lower the frame rates that you're seeing in this benchmark test just because I'm recording through the phone directly. Now when I'm not doing that, when I'm not recording, you can see the frame rates hover more so between 80 to 90 frames per second, rather than it kind of hovering between 75 to 85. So that's one thing that I'm noticing. And I'm also somewhat testing the field of view to see how much frames I can get with a smaller field of view. Obviously, you don't want to lower the field of view to the point where it feels like you have tunnel vision. Though I will say though, for playing on mobile, there are times where that's okay. Like say for instance, you go with a lower field of view, maybe like between 70 to 80. Um, which does start to give you that tunnel vision effect because it's just way too zoomed in. But this phone does have a super wide screen, one of the widest screens you can possibly have on a phone, 21:9 aspect ratio. So it does stretch that, and so you don't get the full fisheye look, like when you're well, not fisheye. I guess the opposite of that tunnel vision feel like you get when you're using an 18:9 aspect ratio screen. So you can kind of get away with using a smaller field of view on a Sony Xperia, especially the One Mark V, because that was the last model that they had before they changed the aspect ratio to match Samsung's. And so that's another reason why I didn't want to go with the Sony Xperia 1 Mark 6. Comparing the Mark 6 versus the Mark 5, there's some give and take there because obviously the Mark 6 Xperia is going to have the latest Snapdragon processor. I believe it has a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. While this phone does use the 8 Gen 2, it may not have as much capability as the new Xperia. However, what it makes up for that is with the Sony Xperia Stream accessory. and I've been harping on this, I've been talking about this for a long time because a lot of people are skeptical about it. But I'm telling you right now, it makes all the difference because one, you're not using your processor, uh, like you're not pushing it past the point where it's overheating nearly as much as you would on a phone that doesn't have a built-in fan or some kind of accessory that can keep it cool. There's some accessories you could buy off of Amazon that can actually give you like a built. I guess you could just like attach it to the back of your phone, but it's not exactly the same as the Xperia Stream because the Xperia Stream actually turns it into a mobile console, giving it an HDMI port, an Ethernet port, the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, and of course allowing you to connect a Type C power connector to keep the phone, powered throughout the whole thing. Which you can charge the phone, or you can use the high sensitivity power control, like what I've been talking about in some of my recent videos. HSPC. It again, what it does is it just powers the components of the phone without using the phone's battery, which saves you a ton of heat buildup, keeps the temperature in a much better state. Now, what you're seeing in this video, CPUs at 62% usage. We have the GPU at 65% of, I guess that's the temperature there in Celsius. And then we're seeing the frames per second. Now, of course, I'm using the chopper gun right here. So you're going to see the frame generally lower, but still above 60 pretty much the entire match, which is good. And this is what we kind of want because we test the high max settings of the Warzone Mobile on this phone to prepare it for any kind of connectivity to a television. And whether you lock the frames at 60 or you allow the phone to just push past it to try to get a little bit more latency, this actually does work pretty well. As long as the TV has a low latency function or a game mode where you can basically play games on it and have a quicker reaction, then it's perfect for that. So it kind of turns into a mobile console in that aspect. Now, what I'm doing right now is I'm just playing off of the screen of my phone itself, which can go up to 120 frames per second. And so when you actually see those frame rates go above 60 and hover between, say, like 75 to like 95, that actually gives me a pretty good advantage when I'm playing it like that because the latency of the phone is much better. I've also recently just bought a wired headset specifically for this so that I don't have to use my Bluetooth headset, which again draws latency because I'm using the system on the phone to connect another wireless device. I already have the DualSense controller as a wireless device, so I don't need to start using a bunch of different Bluetooth accessories, which would again affect performance. So when you're trying to maximize your performance, you do have to consider, of course, the graphics, how good the graphics are, how good the textures are. We just saw the textures on the walls. That actually is looking pretty sharp. Or if you want more frames, then of course you got to lower all the settings. Now, I didn't win this match, but I did pretty good on this one. And you're seeing some pretty consistently good performances. I believe my KD for Warzone Mobile is like at least 2.5 or something like that on multiplayer mode. And then on the Battle Royale, I think I'm over like 3.5 or almost 4. And so the actual phone itself is giving you better than average performance compared to other phones, to the point where it does actually make a positive effect on your overall performance. And I'm not going to say that's a crutch for me because I'm just used to Call of Duty. I've been playing since the PlayStation 2 era, the World War II Call of Duty games from back in the day. So I'm just used to how the game feels, you know what I mean? And of course, with the modern Call of Duty games, they really got the whatever algorithms or whatever programming they have to get the aiming the way that it is. Call of Duty does have the best aiming feel of any first-person shooter by far, especially on controller. I mean, obviously PC is going to really make every game feel really responsive, but Call of Duty, for some reason, it's just smoother than other games. I think Battlefield might be the only one that can come close, but most first-person shooters don't feel as smooth as Call of Duty. And that's one of the reasons why Call of Duty is so successful, is because they get the aiming feel much better than almost every other shooter that's out there. And with Black Ops 6 right around the corner, we're pretty much going to be seeing some of that stuff come over to Warzone Mobile, whether it be the weapons, the maps, the Warzone, the Battle Royale mode and all that. So we have to, give it the benefit of the doubt. If they start bringing Omni movement into the mobile game, that would be pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. I really hope they do that. I heard that they were going to do that, but I didn't actually see any of it in the game yet. But that would be pretty monumental as far as the way the game plays and feels. And I think that the mobility is always a good thing to add to Call of Duty without making it, fucking jetpack mania like it did during the Advanced Warfare era with it was 3 games that did that. I think it was Advanced Warfare, then it was Black Ops 3, and then Infinity Warfare, and then people were just like, man, what the hell is this shit, bro? Like, why do we... Call of Duty's no longer Call of Duty, and now they want it grounded, and now it's like, yeah, nah, this is what it's supposed to be. This is its bread and butter, and I'm glad that it's back to it. Because the modern setting is where Call of Duty is at its best, I believe. That's just my opinion on it, but I don't expect that they go into super futuristic shit. Well, I will say this though, there is rumors already that the next Call of Duty for the end of 2025 is actually going to be a sequel to Black Ops 2, which was a semi-futuristic Call of Duty. They had more technology involved. It was a little bit further into the future, so a little bit more sci-fi, but not too sci-fi like the way Infinite Warfare was. That may be a good idea, maybe branch back into that a little bit without, going completely just blasphemous with it, because Call of Duty should still feel grounded. I think that's when it's at its best. With also the PlayStation 5 Pro, it's going to be launching next month. I do have mine pre-ordered, so I'm looking to see how that's going to be changing the landscape of the second half of this generation. Now, obviously, Call of Duty is going to be one of those games that I believe that for the most part, they're very well optimized for consoles. Because I recall Warzone 2 and Modern Warfare 2 ran very well on the PlayStation 5's base model, hitting that 120 frame per second mark, really covering close to that for the majority of the testing done by multiple YouTubers, whether it be Digital Foundry or some of the other cats out there that actually run real-time, frames per second and frame time benchmark tests. So that alone is promising. What the PS5 Pro is going to do is it's going to hopefully keep the consistency of the frames while actually boosting the resolution even more. And where I'm torn at, because honestly, there are some multiplayer games like Call of Duty specifically that would make me want to continue to play on a 120 hertz monitor. But what I'm going to be curious about is just how different it runs on the base PS5 versus the PS5 Pro, because as of when the launch of the PS5 Pro, I'm probably going to be running the upgraded console on my 4K 60 television. Okay, even if I had a 120 hertz 4K TV, I feel like it would be better to just play on a monitor if I'm going to be playing at 120 hertz, because the smaller screen, better latency, just better performance overall, unless you're spending like an insane amount of money on some really high-tech shit. But I already have a solid 1440p gaming monitor that I've been using my PlayStation 5 on. And what I want to start doing is I want to focus on some of those other multiplayer games that really cap at 60. Helldivers and Starship Troopers and Predator Hunting Grounds and Space Marines 2 is definitely on the chalkboard. I'm probably going to get that one as well. And I'm building a physical collection. You know, I want to get Space Marines 2 as a physical copy. I'm probably going to get Black Ops 6 as a physical copy. Okay. Um, the only time that I actually will, you know, actively pick up a digital version of a game is if it's the kind of game that is multiplayer only, because multiplayer only games are only going to pretty much exist as long as the servers are available, right? So even if it's an older game, like for example Battlefield 2042 is a multiplayer only game, so getting the physical copy is not as important as say like getting Elden Ring, right? I got Elden Ring. I have Gran Turismo 7 as a physical copy. Elden Ring, physical copy. Um, Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon, physical copy, right? So those are examples of games that have a solid core single player experience that may or may not also have multiplayer or co-op or things like that that more or less are available for a finite amount of time, because we can talk about 20 years from now and all the games that we're playing right now and think, oh man, if only I could still play that game, but no, the servers are down, or no, it's taken off the store. But that's the main argument right now with console versus PC, is that PCs, they the PC gamer, at least the elitist, right? Not your typical, cool PC gamer, but the ones that talk the most shit are the ones that are saying, "Oh, well, you could do all this with the really expensive rig, or maybe you could spend $500 more than 700 and get a nice PC to do this and that." But what about the games though? Because like, yeah, you may receive some of the multi-plats that PlayStation is putting on there, but you're just renting it. And I even see some of these YouTubers out there, some of these guys are complaining. They're actually complaining about the fact that they don't own their games. So they already know what's up. They already know that they're getting screwed over and that they have to find workarounds or specific retailers or websites that sell copies of the game that are DRM free or whatever the hell, Maybe they have to like somehow embed NFTs or something into the purchase of a PC game, and maybe that can give them some kind of digital imprint that shows that they can use it whenever they want or download it whenever they want. I don't know. I'd rather just have an actual disc. From what I've seen, Blu-ray discs are getting a pretty massive upgrade. There's currently technology that's being brought out. I believe Cold Fusion is the YouTube channel that just did a breakdown on this. So supposedly, CDs are now able to add more layers, and this is in its initial stages, so it's not like something that's marketed yet or something that's industrial yet. But supposedly, there will be CDs that can hold terabytes. I'm talking about like hundreds of terabytes of data. Compared to what Blu-ray discs do now, that's a huge jump. But the problem is the read speeds and things like that are not quite as promising as, of course, solid-state drives. So having a disc that you can then put pretty much all the files of the base game itself to the console from the disc, that's something that I think is going to be important for the preservation of a lot of the games that are going to be coming out within the next few decades, right? Because I think that console gamers, what they should do is not allow these gaming developing companies to switch over to digital copies only, because there has to be a clash back. There has to be some kind of backfire for them shifting the entire industry towards that. Nintendo can't be the only ones with physical copies. No. I think Xbox is really starting to lean more into the digital shit. But Sony at least gives you the option to add a disc drive to the PS5 Pro, and I'm assuming that they should do something like that for whatever consoles come after that. They should never try to dedicate an entire generation of consoles to digital only. That would be a huge mistake, and it would instantly put the company in a bad publicity standpoint with the consumers, because gamers don't want to depend on the internet to access their shit. If you're in a fucking bunker somewhere and the bombs are dropping above you and just so happen to have a stash of stuff like at the end of that movie, Leave the World Behind or whatever, and you're that little girl watching Friends and all that, and you have this whole freaking library of physical copies of shit, that actually makes a lot of fucking sense than to have no physical copies and rely on the internet to have access to your shit, or to actually have the ability to access it on your console. That's where shit gets really weird, and I think that the amount of trust that would be lost would be devastating for any gaming company that goes completely into that. Unfortunately, PC gaming has normalized that, and that's probably the biggest argument that console gamers can have against PC gamers right now, is that they've allowed this. They've welcomed that idea with open arms, because you know a lot of these people that are on PC, they're not really talking about that. They're not fighting to bring disc-based copies of PC games. They're not doing that, but console gamers would. And overall, the preservation of these forms of art is what games are. All the work that goes into them. That shit needs to be preserved, first and foremost. If you start losing the ability to hold on to that shit, then you're going to start to run into the same issue that is happening right now between Nintendo and all the emulating developers that are trying to preserve their stuff. They end up basically trying to stiff arm them into not allowing them to, preserve the shit, because they're taking money from them supposedly for doing that. And that's where there's a huge problem there, and that's kind of why retro gaming still has its place in the gaming industry, and that's why you still have places like Heroes and Fantasies and Game Over and supposedly GameStop Classic or whatever the hell that shit's called, where actual old gen consoles and old gen games are still sold and bought, but over time those are going to all get more expensive because there's not going to be as many available, because they're going to get bought up. And so anytime that I get a chance to stop by a store and get kind of fill in my repertoire, my library of old consoles like PS3 games and stuff, I'll do that, especially right now, because you can still get like a copy of Killzone for like $6. You can get it. You get the entire Resistance saga for like $12 or $20 or something like that. And that's the kind of shit that's like, oh yeah, that's great. I'd rather have that, just in case, the internet gets shut down or something. We can still play some fucking solo games, right? Get your generator going, a little bit of solar energy, right? You got solar panels on the house. You can still get some shit going and have some entertainment. Because during the COVID era, everybody was stuck at home, right? So that's where that shit really came in handy. Now, enough of this rant, you know what I'm saying? So the gameplay that we're seeing here, obviously I'm kind of going ham with the sniper. I do need to up my sensitivity, though, because the sensitivity I had by standard is just terrible. I'm just now somehow figuring out how to get it to land these shots. But, yeah, man, preservation of games is important. And the way I look at it, games are just an entertainment media, just like watching TV is. It's the same thing with television. Not a lot of people buy physical copies of television or movies. They just stream it. And how's that going to hold up when the time comes where there is no internet, Because it's going to happen at some point. We're going to fucking go to war with China or Russia, and then you're not going to have shit. And I guess none of this shit's going to matter at that point anyways. But still, for the sake of, 50 years later, and somebody goes into the rubble of your house and they're going to see this shit there, it's kind of cool to know that, hey, somebody actually fucking kept some cool shit that actually lasted. You know what I'm saying? So, like, think about shit like that, Because it's a very close reality to what we're looking at right now. But yeah, man, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is pretty much the end of it right here. And Jada09, aka Ayala1. You know what I'm saying? We just be going hard on Call of Duty, man. Just whenever I get a little time, I just pop this shit in. You know what I mean? Get a couple kills. Y'all can see how I get it in on that shit. And we keep it like that, straight like that. Be on the lookout for PlayStation 5 Pro videos that are going to be dropping once the game comes out. I'm probably going to first look at Helldivers 2 to see just how much better it looks once we get that hardware in our hands. And of course, I'm going to be paying attention to all the news coming out, so there's plenty more discussion to be had regarding that. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video.